Welcome everybody to the show. This probably sounded like it should have been the Three Gun Show, but it's not the Three Gun Show. This is Dave versus the Industry, part 2, with my good friend Max. Adam Maxwell, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
What is up, everyone? Always glad to be on the show, talking to my good buddy Dave. Who knows where we'll end up, but it'll be a fun trip.
You say always glad, but you have been the only guest on this particular show.
To date. This thing's gonna be huge, so I'm just preempting.
It's gonna be big. So if you can't figure out what we're doing, folks, so there's a lot of topics outside of Three Gun, which back in 2015 I started the Three Gun Show podcast. It was wildly popular, especially when Three Gun Nation was around. Toured the country shooting Three Gun, pulled a travel trailer, just sold everything I had, just brought the guns and my best dog Parker, and we toured the country shooting Three Gun. Met hundreds of amazing people. Been to SHOT Show, enter annual meeting, TriggerCon with the show, creating content for years, and now I've made a transition back into a role with a company. That company is called Stag Arms. I work as the marketing manager for Stag Arms. And Amax and I were talking about how everybody on the outside of the shot industry, the shooting, hunting, outdoor, and trade. What's the T? Trade.
Shooting, hunting, outdoor trade.
Yeah, shooting, hunting, outdoor trade show. Everyone on the outside of the shot industry really wants to be a part of the shot industry. So being that we are very fortunate to work in the shot industry, me being a newbie, Amax being a couple years in now, I think 5 years, is that right?
I'll claim 5, yeah.
Like 3 as a dealer and then 2 with Vortex Optics?
Yep, 2 going on 3 with Vortex.
Okay, so about that time. So we decided, this is a cough, we decided that we might want to give people like a glimpse behind the curtain. So Amax basically came up with the idea for this. And I ran it by several friends. One of them, mutual friend of ours, Jay Christensen, and he's like, I think that's a great idea. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a romantic thing to get a job in the industry that is your hobby.
Yeah, for sure.
And not saying it's not cool, because it is, but nothing free in this world. There's absolutely trade-offs for it. And, I think part of the idea for this show was that giving people a little flavor of the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Maybe. Some of the things you don't really think about. But also, I think kind of what you were getting at too is we love the Three Gun Show. We love Three Gun. It made us who we are, and all of that. But as a subject matter, I mean, you kind of covered it.
well,
a lot of ideas that we had kind of branched away from Three Guns. So
yeah, for me, I've met so many people in this industry doing things outside of Three Gun, like creating content at shows. I don't think this is a secret, so raise your hand if this is, but I worked as a contractor for Vortex Optics at TriggerCon 2 years in a row. That's not a secret,
Fact.
right? Okay.
Fact.
So I had like a Vortex, shirt on, had the tag and everything, answered questions to people that came in the booth as Vortex.
And we taught him the secret handshake.
Yeah, I learned the 3 rules of Vortex mail LE sales, and
yes,
and then so me and Dakota Overland have done that for a couple of years, and it was a really great experience. Through those experiences, I've met so many interesting people outside of Three Gun, and I've always thought of like how can I like twist this so hard that somewhere it touches something that Three Gun touches, and you just can't, because it's it's like it's just something so adjacent to three gun that you can't even twist it in there. So I decided like why limit.
Yeah, it's more like those people touch three gun than three gun touches those people and topics.
Yeah, that's a really good point for sure. I mean, because there's a lot of bleed over into different areas and stuff like that. But there's personalities that the typical three gun show listener would not enjoy. They'd be like, you know what? I would really much rather have Greg Jordan on the podcast one more time so I can see if I can learn more from him. Or, hey, get Daniel Horner on here, which those are both really good points. Those are dudes, always welcome on the podcast. Love to have them on. But there's also other topics that I'd like to cover. I'd like to expose to the listeners of the Three Gun Show if they're amenable to listening to it. And then, if it's something that people are responding to, we'll keep doing it. And so that's kind of the behind the scenes here. Dave versus the industry. AMAX came up with the name, which I think is a brilliant name. And so, like, for example, today we're going to be talking about suppressors, right? And so in three gun, can't run suppressors.
I tried, believe me.
AMAX has tried so hard. I totally jacked up a dude's run at one of our Big Ben Blast and Dash the first year because he had a suppressor. I was standing safe distance from him, not suppressor distance from him when the clock was supposed to end. I totally jacked it up for him. I felt so bad, but there's challenges. So AMAX has always been the suppressor guy. I've always been the, I guess, for lack of a better term, transient, where I haven't really had an address, which I understand to get suppressors, you have to have a physical address and live in one place. And so since I've traveled so much, I've never really explored that part of it. But now that I'm permanent in Cheyenne, Wyoming, I'm looking into that. And through a conversation I had with a mutual friend, Jeremy Gresham at IWI, I really want to build a 300 blackout. Like at Stag, we have really cool 300 blackout uppers. I might just end up buying one of those complete uppers. We sell the pistols as well. But here's a funny thing. Do you remember the yeet cannon thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that like have a life and don't pay attention to the internet, what is High Point? High Point had a gun naming contest, and they allowed their audience to name their gun, and the audience chose Yeet Cannon, Y-E-E-T, Yeet Cannon. And apparently that's some sort of internet meme. I don't know. The kids are talking about it, but so High Point for a minute was like, we can't name our gun that. And then the internet exploded. So a lot of other companies came out with Yeet sort of things. And Aero Precision came out with a lower receiver, a Yeet Cannon. And it was basically just a photoshopped edition. And you could pre-order it and it would come in like 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it was. So they suckered me in. I bought the Yeet Cannon. And I wanted to build a pistol out of it, an AR pistol. And then after talking to Gresham, sorry, go ahead.
What was the Aero Yeet Cannon?
It was just a lower receiver.
Oh, it was just a lower receiver that said
Yeet Cannon on it. Yeah, I mean, I can go. I have to go snag it, but I can show you. Maybe it'll be the photo for this episode. But
I was only for some reason I had in my head that it was an upper.
No, it was just a lower. It said Yeet Cannon on the side, so it was just like some branding on the side, like where they normally put like an American flag or something. So yeah, I was like, all right, well, cool, I'll do that. But anyway, so I want to build like a 300 blackout upper, because I understand from our buddy Mike Whitesides that we had a great talk about 300 blackout. So without like further ado, long story short. Years ago, I met a guy named Mike Pappas, and he was cool as hell. And I always thought, like, well, if I need a product that guy's selling, I'm going to look into it. And that is his business, is silencers. So you know a little bit more about Mike than I do, AMAX, just from like reputation-wise. So maybe you can kind of lead in there and tell the audience exactly who Mike is. And
well, Mike Pappas, to get an image of in your head, he's basically like if in the cartoon Pinky and the Brain, like if the brain was a person and he'd actually like taken over the world once, so he's an evil genius, but he's kind of done it once before and now he's figuring out how to do it again. That's Mike Pappas.
And
he's pretty chill, but he's still got the lightning in his eyes. Like he's still got the.
That's a really good analogy.
In there.
That's a really good analogy, but like a little bit more chill than the brain, right? Like you said, he's been there, done that, and so now he just wants to do it his way.
Yeah, so he's like, if he could do it again, he'll do it. But
So it was Silencer Co., right?
Yeah. So I'm a little fuzzy on this part of the Mike Pappas story, so I'm sorry, Mike, if I get this wrong. But yes, he had a significant career at Silencer Co. When Silencer Co. was hot. So kind of like
before the proposed legislation thing, right?
Right.
The Hearing Protection Act.
Yeah. So when Silencer Co. was like skyrocketing up and everything they touched turned to gold, that was when Mike was there. A lot of those initial ideas were his ideas, or he contributed on them. So
he's also been on like several of the Outdoor Channel television shows, because turns out dude literally owns a tank.
Yes, he does.
Yep.
So that's where like he's taken over the world once and he doesn't care. Like he drives a Bonneville. Like that's his shtick, is he like drives the same 1986 Bonneville or whatever.
Yeah.
From whenever, but he has a tank. So like he chooses to drive the Bonneville, not because that's all he can afford. It's just what he likes. But he has a tank. And a very large collection of very nice or collectibly relevant Russian or comm block NFA weapons.
Yep.
So everything AK, Galil, anything.
And all those make Mike like really good fodder for YouTube channels. So he's done a ton of collabs and things like that, which actually works to his advantage in his current role as CEO, president, founder, whatever of Dead Air Silencers.
Yes, he and I'm forgetting the name of his sidekick.
The
guy that's
Pinky?
Yeah. No. My gosh. Two of them branched off from Silencer Co. There was another one. His Instagram handle is MFC or MF something. I'm gonna look it up but anyway, the two of them got together and started Dead Air.
Right. And so
as a company, basically when Silencer Co. got bought out and went in a hipster direction, getting more into being a marketing company that sold silencers and less about being a company that
innovated.
Yeah, innovated. They went and started their own innovating silencer company. I'm really embarrassed. I'm forgetting that guy's name.
That's all right.
But
someone will tell us.
Yeah, they went and did Dead Air, and kind of their first product that really set them apart, aside from being a solid can, they did the Sandman series. What really set the Sandman apart was its attachment system. So it basically was it had 3 splines, and then basically they were offset, so it only went on one way, and then it turned about 1/8 of a turn, and there was some like locking tines behind it so that it was locked on, and then it kind of ratcheted down against a taper. But all of that, you could put it on, you could index it properly, put it on, twist it, and it was locked on, and then twist it, it would pop off. And then they came up with some other stuff too. They came up with a pistol can. They got other stuff now. But that attachment system, to give you kind of an idea of the Gary Hughes, that's the guy's name, Gary Hughes.
That's Pinky.
I'm sorry, Gary. I only met you one time. I feel like an asshole, but Gary Hughes, Mike Pappas, Gary Hughes started Dead Air. Anyway, they took this attachment system And they are the ones, now you'll see a lot of companies, or they'll thread their cans for this type of adapter. Since like the Q does this and a few others, but they basically thread theirs on the same thread pitch that Silencer Co. uses on their Omega and their Saker and stuff like that. Well, they did that. That started with Dead Air. Dead Air basically knew the thread pitch, or figured out the thread pitch for the Silencer Co. attachment system. The Saker attachment system is terrible. Let's just get that out in the open. Even Silencer Co. has gone away from that thing because it wouldn't attach very well, and a lot of times you'd shoot your can down range.
Yeah, that's not good.
So it's less than ideal. So what they did was they figured out the thread pitch that adapter went into. One of the things that Silencer Co. made Silencer Co. successful was it wasn't just the can, it was all the accessories around the can. You got the different attachment devices in the back, you got the different end caps in the front. Those are all accessories that a dealer can sell you. So it's a lucrative product from a retail standpoint, to get people into, because they would get into a system. There's lots of accessories you could get for your one.
Yeah.
And once you were heavily invested in your one, you'd want to stay within that brand, because then all your muzzle devices and things were cross compatible.
That's one thing I've noticed several times recently, looking at different suppressors and different suppressor companies, is that one suppressor will come with two muzzle devices. And I thought, like, that is freaking brilliant. Like, of course you can use
That's new. That's happened since I've been in the market, so I haven't noticed that yet.
Oh, really? Yeah. So, I've noticed. I noticed that actually today, which is what reminded me of bringing up this topic with you. And so a couple companies are doing that. Like, you buy one suppressor, you get two muzzle devices, and then you can use it on two different rifles or something like that. So, I guess like the thing that appeals to me about suppressors is obviously my hearing, my personal hearing. Like, I don't have any delusions of being like a movie sniper. I'm aware. I've been around suppressors. I've shot them with you. I've shot them with other people. I know that they're not completely silent, but I also know that they take the sting out of a lot of the rounds that we shoot. So that's not what I'm looking for, but what I'm looking for is like have some fun and still be able to speak to other people. And what I think is really cool, like I really want to put together like a Magpul Backpacker 1022 with a suppressor, something that is small and compact, but is easy to hand like a newbie, and like hand it to them, and then we can talk while they're learning. Because so many times I've like tried to teach people to shoot on my 3-gun AR with the big break, and it's scary and loud, and it just doesn't end up well. So,
yeah, I always find that kind of ironic how, alpha male a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, we're shooting guns, blah, 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 loud explosions, whatnot. And then you introduce a muzzle brake in the mix, and they're like, that's loud.
Yeah.
You're a total asshole if you use one of those things. It's like, you guys are literally out here running around talking about how cool you are, throwing flashbangs, but as soon as we have... It's ironic, but I get it. So like a lot of my initial suppressor use was, I had rifles with muzzle brakes on them. If you put a suppressor on them, it brings it down to a dull roar. Mm-hmm. And then like for a lot of my suppressor use now is like when we're out doing demos and stuff like that with customers. Yeah. So we're out doing demos with customers. It's I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, let me take over then, because I noticed this at TriggerCon this year, because all the guns that you brought this year, or not this year, 2019, all the guns that you brought had suppressors on them, and it was awesome. And the guys next to us had was a break on something, but it was like
a break on a 308 or something like that.
Yeah, but it was a shorty 308, so it was like extra special annoying. And then, ever since then, I'm like, okay, well, we could have just been here talking to our customers, but I've had to double plug this entire time because I don't want to blow out my own hearing, just to be able to communicate with someone.
Yeah, that's what I was struggling to articulate was we're trying. We can at a demo we can be running 3 firing points. People shooting, and yes, it's, you want earplugs in, but we can have like one layer of hearing protection on and still carry a conversation with somebody behind the line instead of having to have double muffs on and then be like, huh? What? And
Right.
then, you know, I do the thing now. This is my habit now, even if I'm not wearing hearing protection, like someone starts talking to me, I just turn my ear to them and I lean really close.
Yep.
Like I'm breaking eye contact, which is awkward for them, but I'm giving them my ear.
Yep.
So that's, and with suppressors, you don't really do that. So it's kind of a double effect for us on the sales side. One, it's super cool because most people don't have a lot of suppressors, or even if they have suppressors, they're into them. So it's window dressing in that they want to shoot it because it's suppressed. And then it brings the report down to a level where it's still loud, but it's at a level that we can deal with it and still communicate with people.
Right. And then if you're talking about your longevity on the job, it's less damaging to you personally. So, 15 years from now, you can still be selling Vortex optics because you took those measures to protect your hearing up front,
Oh, yeah. And then you get into stuff like in the tactical world, which is a lot of my exposure now. They're really popular because those guys are generally shooting guns around each other.
Yeah.
And in enclosed structures. So if you haven't shot a gun in an enclosed space before, you don't really have a concept for what loud is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas when they start putting suppressors on, they're not. This is kind of the challenge that they have. They're fighting an administration. It's like, well, we're not trying to sneak around or anything. No, they're not trying to silently assassinate people, but they're still trying to communicate. So they have radios and stuff going back and forth, and they can still communicate with each other. They're not in auditory exclusion after they have to light somebody up. They can still control a room and communicate with each other and not get blasted out. And then also, these guys are professionals. They have a career out of this. They have less cumulative hearing damage because they put a suppressor on, even if it's just a K suppressor, something that just cuts it down to a safe level. It makes a huge difference in the environment that those people are in if they introduce a suppressor versus if they're just shooting a naked flash hider.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so there's so many different kinds of suppressors out there. It's like hard to figure out like which one you should get. And I think a lot of people, and this is kind of where I was starting until you and I talked, was a lot of people try to go to like, what is the greatest decibel reduction noted?
Yeah.
You know? And then the other thing is like, I'm looking at a lot of these and it looks like they'll fit everything from a 17 HMR all the way up to like a 300 Winchester Ultramag or a Norma or something. And it's like, well, I thought I needed something different for 5.56 and something different for 300 Blackout or for 6.5 Creedmoor. But it seems like the modern market is kind of heading toward like a dual suppressor that you can use amongst a lot of different firearms.
Yes, but yes. And what that is that's a creature of the NFA situation. So because you have to go through the NFA process, because it's time consuming and invasive and expensive, people generally don't want to do it more than one time unless they become NFA fanatics like me. I've done it so many times now, I don't really sweat it. It's just as long as I have the $200 in the budget, like it's sweet. So because of the artificial pressure on the consumer to do this as few times as possible, the entry-level consumer generally is trying to make this one thing do as many things as possible. Now, it is true that, generally speaking, if a suppressor has a orifice large enough for the bullet to pass through it and is welded or constructed of a rigidity that can take the pressure associated with that cartridge, it can be applied to many cartridges. So that's where you get a lot of people buying 30 caliber cans and putting them on 5.56s because they work on 5.56s and 300s, 308s, 30-06s, 300 Win Mag, all that stuff on one suppressor. Now, the way a suppressor works, it's going to be more effective the more volume it has and the closer the baffles get to the bullet. So the closer to the actual size the orifice is, the more effective it's going to be. It might be marginally so, but it's going to be more effective. And the same thing with the more expansion chamber space we have, the more effective it's going to be. So that's where you get into a lot of these cans. They make a 30 cal can. They rate it for some super awesome Winchester Magnum something or other. And they say, yep, rated from everything up to 17 HMR, which has no pressure at all the way up to this crazy pressure. And that gets a lot of consumers. The thing to keep in mind is, one, what do you want it to sound like? What do you want it to weigh? What are you actually using it for? And again, the other thing is like they sell kind of these modular systems. Like you get the whole silencer kit with it. And it's like you put this on, you put that on, and it's a 22 pistol suppressor. And then you change this and you change that. And then you can put it on your 30 cal. And then you change this and you change that, and you can put it on your hunting rifle. The thing to keep in mind is if you shoot these a lot, they all get hot. So while configurable, I've found that it sells more cans than it actually is value. So one of the cans I guess we could criticize, or we could look at this in that lens, is the Omega, the Silencer Co. Omega. It's sold as being one of the most versatile cans out there. You can put all kinds of end caps on it. You can put all kinds of adapters on the back on it. But what you don't really realize is once you start shooting that a lot, like if you shoot it on a 5.56 a lot, you run it through some heat cycles, those accessories are going to carbon lock on there.
Yeah.
So at some point, you're basically working this down into one or two configurations. Really, you're working it down into one configuration. It's just that you can work it down into a configuration that probably works good for your application. You can custom tailor it to your application more so than you can Lincoln Logs this into whatever you want to do today.
So
I guess.
So with that Omega, and if you're using it with 5.56, you're going to get a bunch of carbon. Like, if the audience is 3-gunners, they can understand. There's a ton of carbon that comes with a 5.56, and if you've ever tried to use like an adjustable gas block after a whole season of shooting on it and never touching it, that's what we're talking about here. But pardon me, I just sneezed there. Is it possible to clean that so it comes clean, or I mean, is it serviceable? Can you put it
Not
in
really.
like a?
That was the thing, is like, so I started shooting a lot of 300 blackout with it, and then because
with an Omega. So you've had an
with
Omega.
an Omega.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an Omega. This right here. This is my first silencer. Is a Silencer Co. Omega.
Okay.
And I was shooting it for a while on a 300 blackout, and 300 blackout is cost prohibitive to shoot, so I wouldn't shoot it a whole lot.
Why
and
is
like,
that?
I would. It's just expensive. It's 2 or 3 times more the price. It costs 2 or 3 times more than 5.56 does.
Oh,
shoot.
okay.
Just it's a little bit more rare. The bullets are significantly larger.
It's not
still
mass
kinda
produced
niche.
in United States manufacturing plants.
Right. But even in the short heat cycles that I would get, just having a fun range session with one of those, like I would get enough heat that the adapters would come loose. Like just in shooting and heat cycles and vibrations, they would come loose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I got them tight enough that they wouldn't come loose anymore, now they got tight enough that when they carbon lock together, so you run them through a heat cycle, and now the threads are kind of seized together. So when you go that opposite end of the spectrum, if you get it tight enough that it doesn't come loose, it starts to, for lack of a better term, bond together. And now to get it apart, you both have to have a tool that can exert that amount of pressure on it, which is hard to do. And you have to be able to hold it without crushing it. That's the really hard part.
So these are not rigid side to side then.
No, this thing is basically a tube, a hollow tube with some baffles in it. So if you grab on it too hard with a vise, you're essentially crushing it.
Okay.
A pop can.
So you're talking about okay. So I was thinking with a grip.
Even with a grip, even with just like a needle, like a slip joint pliers. Like, I mean, you
okay.
could,
so no tools on these things basically.
You can, but again, this is the thing that you registered and you run the risk of destroying. It has a serial number on it.
Yeah, see, that's the problem.
So-
Is I guess the technology, or I mean, I don't know. Like, if I feel like a serviceable suppressor is like a smart thing to do, where you can take it apart and take the baffles out, clean it, all that shit. But it doesn't seem like the manufacturers of those things agree with me.
And now as an end user, somebody who uses them a lot, I don't want that. I don't. Because I mean, as for primarily, I think what we're talking about here, you know, for your applications, we're talking about centerfire rifle suppressors. Centerfire rifles burn hot enough that they don't require cleaning inside. So basically, they're self-maintaining. Except for the attachment devices, they're self-maintaining for the lifespan of that suppressor. So there's really no reason to take it apart other than you wanting to make it do other things. So,
to like reconfigure it or to put those little pads in there.
Right. So like, well, the pads thing, that's for pistol suppressors.
Okay.
You're talking about the little baffles that get shot out and then you have to replace them.
Yeah. It's like little cloth.
That's a pistol thing.
Thingies. Oh, weird.
But I mean, for rifle cans, like I either want it to be direct thread and be lightweight for like a bolt gun or something like that, or even like an Acme thread type thing, or I want it to be quick release. And if it's quick release, then all I need is adaptability to different muzzle devices,
right?
And I can put it on whatever I want. But now I'm pretty much of the mind that I'm buying it for a caliber, and that's it. I'm not trying to make it do a bunch of things.
That's what I thought you had to do.
Hosts. What's that?
That's what I thought you had to do. I thought you had to buy it for a particular caliber. Because like not knowing anything about this, other than like conversations I've had with people, and maybe I've just had conversations with intelligent people, but I was assuming I would have to buy a 22 LR suppressor, a 5.56 suppressor, a 300 blackout suppressor, and then one for 308/65.
Oh, that's some really good marketing there.
No, really?
Yeah.
Am I way far off on that?
I mean, basically the trifecta that the retail industry the retail world will try to sell you is that everyone needs a 22 suppressor. To this day, I don't own a 22 suppressor and don't really have any interest.
See, I have interest. I want to shoot. I like shooting 22. I bought like 10,000 rounds of Federal 22, and I want to shoot it. And I want to shoot it suppressed. I want to shoot bunnies in their dumb faces.
Yep. They'll tell you need a 22 suppressor, a pistol suppressor, and a rifle suppressor. And then kind of where we're kind of focusing on that third one, they'll say, well, get one in like 30 cal or something like that. And then it's cross-compatible across a lot of platforms, which is true. So you could buy a 30 cal can and put it on your 300 blackout, your 308, your 6.5, and your 5.56. What kind of suppression you're going to get out of those depends on which one you buy. But you're going to have one that's going to perform adequately across all of those, which is what makes, going back to our reference to Dead Air, that's what makes the Sandman series so successful, because it's a really solid 30 cal can. It sounds pretty good on 5.56, but it's still a 30 cal can. Okay.
So for me, I was thinking that maybe I could have one for 300/5.56, but I would need one for 308/6.5. Nope. Is there not some sort of like more accurate suppressor for long range guns than there are for like the mid range 5.56/300?
And then you're getting more into suppressor design than the suppressors themselves. So because long range accuracy depends on consistency, so that's going to come back to an attachment system. So long range guys are generally going to feel like they get more consistent results out of something that's either direct thread
to the barrel,
or with the barrel, or goes onto a tapered shoulder adapter, more so than a ratchet on quick release hard use can.
Well, all these Dead Air ones look like they've got a tapered shoulder.
They do, and so they're pretty good. They're pretty good, but I think you'd have to be a pretty discerning long range shooter to tell the difference, and then it's going to matter gun to gun.
Yeah, I'm not like I'm a monkey right now, so I don't know if it matters that much.
You're probably going to be hard pressed to tell the difference, and by that time you'll be ready for another can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they wear out or something? Is that what you're saying?
No, you'll just as a consumer you'll be ready.
Oh,
like, I'm
okay.
bored with this one. My tastes have evolved.
Just like my evolution of 3-gun rifles over my right shoulder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be that phase of, well, okay, I'm over my first one now. I want this one instead.
I want titanium.
Yeah, I want titanium. Magnesium. I want flow through technology. Like, you'll want
really great suppressor. It would be nice if it had a flash hider on the end.
Yes, exactly. So that's where the dead air system has been really great because they have an awesome attachment system. So you can use the can on multiple hosts. It sounds pretty good on a 5.56 for being a 30 cal, but it's still a 30 cal.
Right. Okay.
But then you get into, if you are primarily shooting it on 5.56 cans, then yes, hosts, then yes, a 5.56 suppressor is going to sound better on a 5.56 host.
Right. Well, and that's kind of why I was thinking, like, I almost need a 5.56 and a 300. And then I was thinking, like, well, maybe it's stupid to even have one for 5.56 because ARs are so noisy in their operation anyway that maybe I just pick up like a fun bolt gun and put a suppressor on that.
And that's part of it too. So like
when lever action. Sorry.
When you get Mike on, Dead Air thus far they have said they're not going to make a 5.56 can.
Oh, okay.
Because they're going to say in 5.56 when you make a 5.56 specific can, with getting the better suppression out of a caliber specific can, there's also an increase in back pressure.
Right.
So the detractor on that, the extra back pressure into the gun to them isn't worth the trade-off of making a 5.56 suppressor. They think they get better results and better tone out of a 30 cal can than they do out of a 5.56 specific can.
Oh, that's freaking interesting.
So the numbers on there, they say ours will compete with any of them. You got consumers out there who are like, no, I want 5.56 specific, and that's where like enter Surefire SOCOM.
Googling.
Yeah.
If you're driving right now, just pick up your phone, go ahead and hit the Safari button and surefire.com. No need to look at the road. It's fine.
Yeah. So Surefire sells a lot of cans for two reasons. Primarily one reason. They won the SOCOM contract for the Block 2 iteration of the SOTMOD program. So they won the SOCOM contract for 5.56 cans. In the SOCOM world, you'll see two cans. You'll see the Knights Armament NT4, which was one of the first ones, and that one was cool because it went on essentially an A2 birdcage flash hider.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was around. It's still around quite a bit because there's still some in service cycle, but ultimately is kind of phased out and replaced with the SOCOM series.
So let's see. I see a SOCOM 300 Ti. Is that the one I'm looking at?
No, it would be the 5.56.
Oh, okay. Let me just search.
But they have a whole series of cans. They've flushed out the whole series, but Surefire sells a lot of cans for a very high price because they have the added cool of being the SOCOM suppressor. So they have the lock.
Dude, it's like
the lock on the clone market.
It's like, I was just going to say that. It's like those clone guns we keep looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. Clone guns like that. I mean, anything else needs not apply. It's like Knights Armament or Surefire. And now OSS has recently won a contract. So you're going to see that coming into fruition once some of those pictures get out.
Speaking of which, you know what? One of our, is this? I don't feel like this is. I feel like this is good info to release. Sorry, I had to think about that one for a minute. One of our better selling rifles, one of the top rifles that we sell, is a AR-15. It's the Stag 15 Retro, and it's basically a 20-inch A2 stock, front sight post, carry handle.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's a big market.
People love the nostalgia, man.
That's like 20% of my IG feed, dude.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got into it for the Mark 18 and the Mark 12, and then you kind of get the rest of it with it. That's like a whole segment of dudes.
It's a really sharp rifle. Like, it looks really cool. And I was talking to Vogel, our buddy Travis, and he was saying, like, dude, the 20-inch, like, it's all the velocity you want. So point it in any direction and it'll knock it over.
Yeah.
He used one of them professionally for a period of time. All right, so I'm looking at the SOCOM 5.56. Let's see. Looks like there's a flat, dark, earthy one. There's a black one.
Yeah, the FDE one. That's the clone correct one.
It's $13.75 retail. Oh, it actually has a little badge on here. It says U.S. SOCOM contract winner. Okay.
Yep. $13.75 without a muzzle device.
I mean, I want it already just because it has the U.S. SOCOM contract winner on there, and it's flat, dark, and earthy.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So what muzzle device will that fit? Will that fit my...
Surefires.
It won't fit my A2 flash hider?
No.
What?
No, you got to get the Surefire ones, and they're expensive.
Holy shit, they're $200.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome to the party.
I like choked on my tea there.
And so, but that's kind of the thing. So that's a very popular suppressor. It won the contract. Now, why did it win the contract? The specifications for the contract are not super quiet, which is what appeals to the consumer market. The important thing on that one was, it was not at the muzzle. It was decibels at the operator's ear. It was service life, so how long would it last? And then there's also a thing called first round pop and first round flash.
Oh, so that first round pop and the first round flash, is that the reason they put those little pieces of cloth in there?
Maybe old suppressor technology, or again, you're talking about pistol suppressors.
Yeah.
Rifle suppressors burn at such high velocity that it's not really a thing.
Oh, okay.
But when the can is cold, so when you haven't been shooting it, it's full of oxygenated air.
Right.
So that
cold air.
Cold air, yep. And so when that first shot goes through there, it's going through a dramatically different environment than when it's warmed up a little bit and there's a ton of smoke in it. Like carbon monoxide,
right.
Smoke.
And it's all hot. Because pressure changes make noise. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yes. So when you shoot, you as the end user or as a user, when you shoot a can, if you shoot it the first time and then you shoot it the second time, it will sound different. You'll hear a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And that 30th time, it sounds way different too.
Yeah. And then that phenomenon is called first round pop. There are technological things they can do in suppressor design to minimize that. That was important for the contract. And then along those same lines, there's a first round flash, the flash that comes out the end. First round pop and first round flash, not desirable characteristics for a SOCOM suppressor. So that was part of the thing. And that's why some commercially very successful suppressors like the Saker, the Silencer Co. Saker, and the AAC, I forget what theirs was called at the time, but like that's why they lost, was because of their performance in those regards. And then being a government contract, I mean, the contract negotiation process also plays a role. I don't know the specifics of it, but I'm guessing they were savvy in that regard too. But a lot of people on the consumer market are like, the Surefire is way overpriced, and it's you way overpriced for what you get. It doesn't perform nearly as good. It's like, well, no, it doesn't perform as good by consumer standpoints or standards when they're measuring it, at the muzzle. But for what it was designed for, it actually performs pretty well. It was just on a different benchmark, and then that's where that's going back to dead air. So that's where they're like, well, our can as a 5.56 is not as good as the one at 30 cal. We think it's more optimized at 30 cal, so we just put a 5.56 end cap on it and we call it good. And that's what they like to put forth in the market, and it's been working for them pretty well. It's thus far. So
Interesting. Yeah, the Surefire, like, not only, I mean, yeah, it's expensive, right? It's a little bit more. It's like $1,375 versus like $1,000 for other ones, or $1,200.
Yeah. Developed by a 3-gunner. Barry Duke is the project manager of the silencer division of Surefire.
Oh, that's great, man. But like the fact that they make you pay $200 for a muzzle device is the most offensive part.
Right? That's why I didn't buy one.
Yeah, like, I mean, the $1,375 is like, okay, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but like, if it's a little bit more expensive,
off a price table, but
I'm sorry. What was that?
I'll pick that cert up off a price table, but
no, but
I'm not going to buy one.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's more, but it's not like crazy more, right? It's not like it's 2,000 versus 1,000. It's $1,375 versus 1,100, or versus 1,200 or 1,000, right? So it's not that much more. And for me, like, I'm at the point in my life where this, any moment I could die. I don't buy green bananas anymore, but
I think on the consumer side, though, it's the threshold of decision is the cost of the stamp. So when a suppressor costs $200 more than its equivalent, the consumer kind of disqualifies it. They're like, well, yeah, but I could buy this and the stamp for the price of just that.
I get that. However, there is value in paying more for things.
Oh, heck yeah.
And like for example, like this recorder that we're listening to right now, or that we're recording on right now, has all these cool little look at that. It's got these and these are the reasons we bought it. We bought it for, yes, I bought it. But I bought it for these little joke buttons over here,
Yeah.
But we could have bought the cheap one for a couple $100, or we bought the whiz bang one that revolutionized the way I record podcasts, made it so much simpler and made my life easier, So it, I from people that have an $1,100 iPhone in their pocket, not willing to pay an extra $175 for a suppressor is ridiculous.
Oh, I get it. But
however,
like this was the challenge as a salesperson. It's like, yes, I understand. You're doing the same thing the last guy did. And that's like my challenge. One of my favorite suppressors on the market right now is the Knight's Armament, CQB.
Hold on to that one real quick. However, the muzzle device being $200 is a kick in the balls. Okay, let's go on to the Knight's Armament.
Oh, yeah, that's a big kick in the balls.
So what's
along those lines? Really cool suppressor. I love it.
The
technology is the Knights.
Okay.
It's awesome. It does everything like way better than it should.
Mm-hmm.
It's super small. It's pretty light. The attachment system is awesome.
Is that little suppressor that you had at the North American Sniper Challenge? What was that one? That tiny little one where everyone was like, "What in the hell? Like, how does this making so little noise?" Was that one the Knights? Wow,
I think so. Yeah, and it's like, man, this thing is so cool. I was like, yeah, I know. And they're like, man, what does this cost? $2,000. What? It's not that cool. Like it's
I'm looking at a photo of it.
It's just a hard stop. Just boom.
Really?
Like, it might not even be a full 2,000, but it's 10-20% more than anything else, and it's absolutely worth it. But to convince the consumer to buy it that is some salesmanship right there. Because I love that thing, but man, I get it too. Like Knight's Armament stuff is priced for government sales.
Yeah.
So that's just how their price structure works, because they're based off of government contracts, not consumer sales. If they get some consumer sales, that's cool. But like they're really after agencies and militaries. And that's how their pricing's set up. But it's like, man, this suppressor would be so cool on the consumer market if it was just $500 cheaper.
That's that QDC CQB suppressor.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, that thing is cool, man. It's tiny. It's 5
tiny.
inches long.
Yeah, and the attachment system is pretty genius. It's basically some ball bearings.
So yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, there's detents machined into the muzzle device, and then the locking ring basically just is a collet that forces these ball bearings down into the muzzle device, and that's what holds it in place. And it resists carbon lock better than anything I've seen. I have the best of the best from everybody, and their muzzle attachment wins hands down. For a baffle suppressor, it's really cool. Unfortunately, it's at a price point that's pretty much a no-go for a lot of consumers on the private market.
Well, I see where you have one for demo now. It's like one of the only places you'll see one, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Man, that's a bummer. That one's really
and
cool.
They work with me a lot on government stuff, so like I really like working with Knights Armament, but yeah, that's where it's like when you're talking to this crowd, like it's a tough sell because they'll go on, they'll do just what you did. They went and looked on that page, and then they see the suggest retail price, like, oh,
it doesn't actually say it on there. I'm on Brownells now trying to figure it out.
You won't see the price on there, but
yeah, they're like, hey, check out a dealer, and so now I'm like trying to look on Brownells to see what it is. Let's see, search within suppressor. This is really compelling radio. Watch me.
Yeah, it's got the little radiating heat fins on there.
Yeah,
it's got the little flash hider thing on the end. Like this is my favorite.
Oh, you got it right there.
Yeah,
jelly.
Super teeny.
Yeah, and it's remarkably quiet for how small it is.
Yeah, it has no business sounding as quiet as it does.
No.
It adds like 2 inches of length, and it's stupid quiet.
Yeah, I don't see it on Brownells. I'll trust you that it's $2,000.
Stupid quiet for a K suppressor. It's probably less than $2,000, but
so you've mentioned K suppressor a couple times. What is a K suppressor?
K is a term used a lot in suppressors for the short version. So often, the Sandman K is the shortest version of it. It refers to the German word Kurz, which is German for short.
Yeah, 9mm Kurz. Like the what the hell is that thing called? Come on, what's James Bond's pistol called?
Oh, the PPK.
There you
go. Again, it's the smaller version of the Walther PP. For some reason that nomenclature was very popular in suppressor technology and suppressor companies. So it just kind of carries on. Now it's kind of a standard when you make the shorter version of your suppressor, it's the K version. Dead Air does it. OSS does it.
So is a K worth buying? Because it's so much smaller.
I think so. I prefer the K versions of rifle suppressors, but again, squaring it back to what are we looking for out of the can? We want to take the muzzle blast down to something reasonable without adding a bunch of length and weight.
Yeah.
So as long as it brings the volume down to an acceptable level, I'm good with it. So yes, currently all my favorite suppressors are the K versions of those suppressors. But then again, so like you get into SBRs, why do you shoot an SBR? Because you want something that's smaller. Well, if you get something smaller, then you hang an 8-inch can off of it. What did you achieve?
Well, so along those lines, I was told one time at a bar that the cool thing about 300 Blackout is if I had one right here, I could put a round into the ground and no one would know.
Depending on the 300 Blackout, I guess.
I mean, I almost saw you roll your eyes there, but so like if you're looking at like the Sandman K, the Sandman S, and the Sandman L, they're 5.4, 6.8, 8.9 inches long, respectively. All seem to have like the ability for 300 Blackout. So is the L going to suppress sound that much better than a K to justify the extra 3.5 inches in length hanging off of your little, in my case, a pistol?
It depends on so many variables. It's gonna have better decibel reading numbers for sure. But then again, you get into what can we measure and what can the human ear detect?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. Like, there's a lot of, so I was just having this discussion with video editing with 4K versus 6K. Like, I'm of the opinion that I can't tell the difference between 2.7 and 4K.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounded
relevant. Resolution of video. So I'm of the opinion that my eyeballs cannot tell, and maybe I have a problem with my eyes, but like it's the same thing with hearing, you know. So like if like this one is 2 decibels quieter, but can you really tell the difference between 2 decibels? You can probably tell the difference between like 20 decibels, but can you tell 2?
I think the human ear can detect 5.
Yeah. So if you're looking at something that has like, you know, 2 decibels better reduction than this one over here, then it's like negligible, right?
But it's a logarithmic scale, so it's that's very different. Like it's an increment of 5 decibels is a lot.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that kind of scale.
So I guess just to put it in perspective, so what a suppressor does, I think a lot of people listening to this have probably messed around with their stereo at some point.
Yep.
So we're going to reduce a lot of volume, sure. But really what it does, essentially, if you picture a gunshot or you kind of perceive it in your head, there's a lot of sharpness and crackness and volume. Like there's a boom, but there's also a crack, and there's it's very instantaneous, and yet it carries across, you know, the landscape.
Yeah.
So picture a sound system in your radio. A suppressor basically takes away all the treble.
Okay.
So there's still a thud. There's still the woomph. Like that's still there. It's taking away everything sharp about the sound. So it's more of a dead blower. It's more of a thud. So when people say like, yeah, you could shoot a 300 blackout here and no one would know, it's kind of like, yeah, no one would know because it kind of sounded like somebody clapped their hands really loud. Like there would be a sound, but you wouldn't necessarily, your mind wouldn't instantly go to gunshot.
Right.
It's just like there was a, you know, it's like that Christmas poem. There arose such a clatter. There's no clatter. All right. There's just, you know, just whack, but there's no like boom that we're used to. We just have a more thud of a noise. So when you say it, when you're asking, well, would the L or the S or the K be more effective on a 300 blackout? It's like, from where? Down range, you probably wouldn't perceive the difference unless just raw volume was different. At your ear, maybe, because you know you're reducing. Well, I guess maybe picture that backwards. At your ear, you might hear it difference because you're right there. So a difference in decibels would be quite different for you. But as you start to get away from the point of origin, the sound is already not carrying as far. The nature of the sound waves aren't the waves that carry as far. So your perception of the gunshot might not be all that different.
So what if
that makes any sense?
Yeah, what if you're talking like a neighbor distance? Just
Neighbor wouldn't tell. Neighbor wouldn't be able to tell a difference. No.
Between a K and an L?
Neighbor could not tell a difference.
Huh. Oh damn.
If they could tell, they could be like, well, they could either like there's no noise or like, oh, Dave's doing something in his yard.
So looking at one of those Ks then.
300 blackout.
So one of those Ks with 300 blackout subsonic through like an 8-inch barrel would be kind of a fun little package then, because you're looking at, you know, 8-inch plus 5.5-inch, that's manageable length.
Yeah, that's the first one that I bought. That's the first SBR that I bought. The first suppressor that I bought was a Seekins 8-inch, 300 blackout with a silencer Co Omega. It's now my deer rifle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the length of an it's about the length of the 11-inch SBR that I shoot at 3-gun.
Oh, okay.
So it's appreciably short. It's not a compact rifle, but it's appreciably shorter than a 14.5 AR.
Right. Okay.
If that makes any sense.
No, it does. So, you've got that there for discussion purposes. So for the audience, go ahead and load that up and just send around into the ceiling.
Little desk pop here.
Yeah. Go ahead and do a desk pop, and
right, give me a second here.
We'll compare. Okay, now that was much quieter than I was anticipating.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like the hammer falling, right?
On an empty chamber.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the 300 blackout. I mean, that's why you pay $30 a round or whatever.
Okay, well, so we've got just a few minutes more on the show here. We forgot to take a break, so we'll wrap it up pretty quick here. But okay, so for my purposes, Amax, what I want primarily is I do want that dedicated 22 suppressor. I want to put it on a Ruger takedown with a Magpul backpacker. Just like a small little thing to shoot bunnies in their face. Or not, or humanely, however you're supposed to do it. And then something for 300, and then, I mean, I probably don't need anything for a long-range rifle at this point. So if we're talking like those two suppressors, like what should I be looking at?
I really don't have any experience with various 22 cans.
Okay.
I mean, if I were buying one, I'd probably buy a Dead Air just because I like them as a company.
Well, so they've got an Odessa 9 that they rate for 22 all the way up to 9. But
yeah.
But that's one of those like erector set ones, where you can like add length to it. And then the other at that point, then it's like, well, why don't I just get that Sandman K and put it on my Ruger as well? The only thing I think about that is appealing is that it's a smaller diameter. It's like 1.1 inch versus 1.5 inches.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing you want to talk about if on a show about suppressors that we probably haven't touched on yet is most suppressors work off a system of baffles, right? So they have various chambers that the bullet is passing through, allowing gas to expand and cool behind the barrel or behind the bullet, and that's what makes them work. There's another technology now that's primarily marketed by a company called OSS, Operator Suppressor Systems or something like that. They advertise a flow-through technology, and there's a few others that are advocating this as well. So instead of creating baffles, they essentially divert the gas. The best way it's been described is a jet engine in reverse. So if you have any concept of how a jet engine works, condensing all the heat towards the center, and that's the thrust, this is the inverse. It's taking all the hot energy or all the hot gas in the center and diverting it through like a bunch of different channels to the outside of the suppressor, and then it dissipates out the edges of the suppressor. So it looks different too.
So these dudes were at the IWI booth at Red October last year.
Yes.
Really nice guys. I'll tell you something that I completely forgot to talk about in this topic. The IWI Galil in 7.6239 with an OSS suppressor was eerily quiet. Like it blew my effing mind because I've never heard a Russian gun that quiet.
Yes.
Or excuse me, a Russian caliber.
And then what's cool about it is because all that energy is still going forward, it doesn't come back into your gun. Like one of the big dirty secrets, pardon the pun, about shooting suppressed is like there's a lot more carbon that comes back into your gun. There's a lot more gas and smoke that comes into your face. That is significantly reduced with a flow-through suppressor.
Interesting. Okay.
So currently one of my favorites to shoot, especially, I mean, I shoot a piston gun already on PWS. So like PWS gun with an OSS suppressor, you can hardly tell that you're shooting suppressed compared to a DI gun. And then you working for a company that makes DI guns, you're going to get a lot longer service interval shooting your guns with a flow through OSS suppressor than you will having that back pressure into your receiver.
Holy
shit. You're going to have to clean that out.
So if you're just listening to this, like I was joking about picking up your phone and like going to the website before, but you owe it to yourself to go to OSS suppressors because they have like a flash video running in the background where they take the suppressor apart, and the machining on it is absolutely incredible. And it looks like the outer portions of deep bored drill bits that you would be sectioning the ground, taking samples out of the ground. Super interesting machining.
And the older ones were kind of like that. They were like 3 pieces that threaded on together, and they were weird. They looked weird. They were heavy. The form factor wasn't right there, but the technology was just that good. And then recently, the HX QD versions that they make now, they basically took all that away. It's one piece now, and it threads onto an Acme thread muzzle device. So basically you have a muzzle device with a tapered shoulder and a Acme thread. So it tapers on really good and it doesn't get carbon locked on there. And like the performance is just outstanding for an AR-15. And then the other cool thing about it, the thing that happens a lot on suppressors that don't have QD ratcheting systems, just direct thread, is heat cycles and the vibration, they start vibrating loose. Because of the way this one works with the flow-through technology and it directing the energy, they actually channel the ports so that it spins the opposite direction of the threads. So it is actually threading itself tighter the whole time. It doesn't walk itself loose. It actually has like an anti-rotation with the thrust of the gas. So the thing's super cool.
That's incredibly smart.
I freaking love them.
Well, dude, and they've got so we were talking about the dedicated 22. They've got a dedicated 22 suppressor that's only $449.
Yep.
Jeez. Well, maybe I'll have to check out OSS as well. Buddy, you froze there. Oh, we lost ourselves some AMAX. We're reconnecting. Oh, and we're back.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry, buddy. So we lost you.
If you're playing a joke on me or not?
No, we lost you at. I honestly
don't have a 22 suppressor or much experience with them, so I don't really have a leg to stand on in that conversation.
I'm gonna let you shoot mine.
Other than, there you go. I'll let you shoot my Knights and my OSS and all the other 5.56 cans I have acquired.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I guess I was looking for just one brand kind of thing, but I guess I'll have to get a Dead Air and an OSS.
That's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah.
Dead Air, OSS, and Knights. That's kind of my list right now.
Yeah.
And it kind of depends on where you're at as far as what you're going to use it for, what your price range is, and how much you really think you're going to shoot it as to which one I would get. So, and how many hosts you want to put it on. If you want to put one can on various different hosts, well, that's a different one too. So,
yeah, I was kind of trying to think about that. Like, I would probably, with like a 300/5.56, I'd probably put that on like 1 or 2 rifles, and then with a 22 suppressor, I would think like 2.
Yeah, well, like on 5.56 rifles or AR pattern rifles. Like the Dead Air muzzle devices are still pretty legit muzzle devices. Like the muzzle brake is a legit muzzle brake.
How about their flash hider? Is their flash hider pretty good?
Yeah, they make a pretty good 3-prong.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet.
Flash hider too. So like the flash hiders are good, and their muzzle devices are good without the suppressor. Whereas more so before, but kind of now too. Like I don't really like the OSS muzzle brakes without a suppressor on them. So like, for the guy who wants a suppressor for his 3-gun rifle, dead air.
Okay.
End of story. Guys who want, ultimate performance, they want the long service interval and things like that. They want low maintenance, OSS. More of the hard use guys are worried about the first round flash and the first round pop and things like that. Knights. And size. The Knights is just super short.
Yeah.
So,
can't beat that.
I mean, they kind of all have their pros and cons. So it kind of depends on who you are as a user and what your price range is as to which one I would pick. I like them all.
Yeah, I'm looking at the muzzle.
Definitely top 3.
The muzzle devices for OSS look like they're made for a suppressor. They don't look like they're made to be like a useful muzzle device.
Yeah, it is the first step of the suppressing interval. Now they have a little bit more of a cage to them now, and they have some little prongs on the end, so they are a flash hider now. I haven't spent much time shooting them without a can on them, so I'm not really sure how I feel about them shooting wise. But like I said, the attachment devices for a Knights or a Dead Air is a lot more what you're used to for just a conventional muzzle device, and they perform pretty good in that regard as well. I think the OSS it's primarily designed as a host for the suppressor.
Yeah.
You can shoot it without, but it's primarily designed to host the suppressor.
Yeah, I mean,
which is what makes that suppressor system what it is. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. It doesn't look like it'd be super useful. But so, okay, last thing before we go here. So if I'm not mistaken, there was an ADM suppressor that hooked on or that attached to a A2 flash hider. Am I crazy about that?
That is correct.
Okay. So tell me about that.
It very closely resembles a Griffin armament.
Okay. So at Stag, like almost all of our rifles, save for our 3-gun, come with a A2 flash hider.
Yes.
So that seems like
I get where you're getting at.
Yeah, it seems like candy corn and peanut butter or something.
So I'd say there's 3 companies that market suppressors that do that. One is the residual Knights Armament and T4, that original Block 1 suppressor from the SOP mod program. Excellent suppressor. Griffin Armament made that really popular as well. It has kind of a locking gate feature. It slides over your A2 flash hider, and then there's a locking gate that slides like a guillotine that slides shut, and it indexes off the wrench flat of your A2 suppressor. I don't think I can go too deep into how ADM got a hold of theirs, but ADM makes one that's very similar to that. They don't market it very aggressively, but they have them, and they're pretty economically priced if you're interested in one. So if you're into that, you should hit them up.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because I have a lot of A2 flash hiders on stuff around here.
Yep. So they do that, and then I think there was another one too. I'm drawing a blank on who it was, but there's a couple companies that do that. So that super attractive option, right? Here's what you got to know about that, because I have some of those in my inventory too. Mm-hmm. Those carbon lock like a mofo.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you get so much carbon inside. So when you shoot a suppressor over your muzzle device, you get this caked on carbon on there, and it's never coming off unless you like take a wire brush to it or something.
Or like, what about
like
one of those?
Like a wheel, not one that you run with your hand, like a motorized like.
What about one of those Hornady vibrating salt bath thingies that they sell?
Yeah, no.
What are those called? The harmonic cleaners or something?
Oh, the sonic cleaner?
Sonic cleaner.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Maybe a big one. But anyway, they're a lot. They, if you shoot them a lot, they get on there tight.
Yeah.
And so like it's a solid, like, so if I take one to a demo or something like that, or if I have a range session with one, I basically make a point of it if I'm running a system like that, because they are cool and I do use them. If I'm using a system like that, basically anytime after I've shot it that the suppressor is cold enough for me to hold on to, I try to take it off.
Oh, I've seen you do that.
Just to break the carbon loose.
I thought that was like just a
you thought
screwing
I was
around with stuff.
With
yeah,
it,
I thought you were
yeah.
just bored.
And I would do that. But in that case, that is because like I've let it go a long time, and it was no BS. It was 30 minutes of pull and wiggle and working. They kind of have like a scraper on the inside, and you basically have to internally scrape all that carbon off,
right,
until you make it across like the 1/2 inch of wrench flat to get it off of there. So no free lunch in this world. That is the caveat of those systems, is that they do carbon lock on there if you shoot them a lot, or if you don't make a habit of taking them off periodically to break the carbon loose.
Interesting. How about direct thread? Does direct thread carbon up onto the barrel at all?
Not really.
No,
Not really.
Okay.
Those are pretty. Yeah, that's not really a thing on direct thread.
Okay.
I think because there's not as big of a surface area for contact on them, maybe, and they're not. I'm speculating. I'm talking. I don't know why that is, but I've not had a direct thread carbon lock on like those do, where it's like, oh man, I cannot get this thing off without significant work.
Okay. Well, so what else should I know about suppressors? If we're parting ways, the train's leaving, what's the last thing you're going to tell me about suppressors?
Just buy one. Start the paperwork today. So many people are sitting on the fence, like waiting for I'm just going to wait until someday when they're legal. If you would just buy one today and do it, you would have one. And so many people would have them 2 or 3 times over than what they would have had waiting for the Hearing Protection Act and then that whole thing.
Can I say, hey, by the way, the Hearing Protection Act is not going to happen. So don't wait for it.
No. Because if it gets going again, there'll just be another Mandalay Bay. But that's another story.
That's part 3.
If you want one, just get one. And, the sooner you do it, the sooner the clock starts running and the sooner you get it back. So if you want one bad enough to even listen to this show, you want one bad enough to buy one, just find the money, fill out the paperwork. It's not that big of a deal. You filled out more paperwork to get the mortgage on your house. Just do it. So
I'm going to do it, man.
Do it.
I am. I will. Fine.
You work for an FFL, like you have no excuses. You just leave that stuff on the FFL and use it for work.
Oh, that's actually not a bad idea. So I was talking to the boss about that and told him like, hey, we need some suppressors because this hurts my earballs. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. But Adam, dude, thank you for running through suppressors with me. I think I'm definitely going to go with at least 2 of these from a couple of the different companies, and we'll see what I come up with. As always, thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye for now.